when I was hold on, let's get going, and then I'm gonna tell the story.
Start recording.
I'm gonna hit record, and then I'm gonna tell you the story.
9 cold opens already with good banter.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna 1, 2. Hey everybody, you're listening to Sports Nerds. Brian and I were having a conversation before we started this episode, and I just want to finish it now. I want to finish the story. Tell Brian the story. There's a couple things. So we were talking about finals week and the fact that both of us are almost there as college professors. That's pretty important. So when I was at Iowa, I think it was my senior year. Finals week was like my favorite week of the year because I just partied and nobody else did. And not to say I sound like a real frat guy there, didn't I? I just partied hard. Whoa, partied hard, man, jungle juice. But I went to the sports column in Iowa City because they had like 50-cent pitchers or something, and there was nobody there except
spit laughing at 50-cent pitchers. That's so 2003.
Yeah. There was one person at the bar, and it was Ashton Kutcher. And I had a beer with Ashton Kutcher. True story.
Why was Ashton Kutcher at the sports column in Des Moines, Iowa?
No, Iowa City. Because
that explains it.
Yeah. He's from Clear Creek. Is it Clear Creek? No, Tiffin.
Is that guy still doing stuff?
Yeah, he's on Shark Tank now. He's like a big investor. He does all the investment stuff.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what he's a VC now.
Really enjoyed him as a stoner on that 70s show.
And what was that movie he made with the guy from Stifler?
William Scott or whatever was Stifler. Jude, where's my car?
I actually like the
really dating ourselves with 50-cent beer at frat parties in the early 2000s and Ashton Kutcher references. not really for the younger and millennial audience, I guess.
No, we're not. I think we're really pandering to our 32 to 38 demographic, aren't we?
Did you ever watch The League, that fantasy football show?
Yeah.
It's on Hulu, and I rewatched the first couple of episodes in the first season a couple days ago. And in the early part of the first season, one of the guys gets divorced, and the other guy's making fun of him. And he's like, you don't know how to go hit on women or get dates anymore. Like, what are you gonna do? He's like, I'll reenact it for you. Like, you walk up to a girl at the bar and you're like, hey, you want to go to a Counting Crows concert? Who's Counting Crows? Like, that's exactly how you sound right now.
Hold on. There's that class across the way.
Oh, are they hearing my...
I don't know. We're going to see. I hope not. Matt, can you hear me? Nope. Okay, we should be good. Can you hear me?
Is this a story that has been shared on the Sports Nerds yet? That sometimes a classroom can hear us recording?
No, that's if folks, if you have no idea what we're talking about, I record in a studio at MSU Denver, and the studio is shared with a classroom, and sometimes the classroom can hear what Brian and I are saying, and sometimes what Brian and I say, if you listen to the show long enough, is not appropriate. So
not classroom appropriate.
Nope. And I'm the professor of a lot of these students, so they're seeing a side of me that nobody other than you, my kids, and my wife see. So. Actually, not even them. Mostly just you and your brother. So I guess there's that. There's the Ashton Kutcher story. Let's keep rolling here, folks.
I'm saying Worcestershire sauce, and no one pronounces it the same.
Follow us, everybody. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We are sports.nerds or at _sports nerds or sports nerds. You can find us. You'll see our floating heads around there somewhere. They're hard. It's hard to miss us. So we'd love to have you follow us, patronize us, if you will, in the best way possible on those platforms. We're also on the YouTube. A lot of viewers out there. So shout out to those who watch our stuff after we record. So there's our social media plug. Of course, if you listen to the podcast as opposed to just watching the video, we'd love to have a rating from you. It would be much, much appreciated. You can leave one of those ratings on Apple Podcasts. If you do listen via Anchor, so anchor.fm/sportsnerds, leave us a rating. And if you wanted to throw us $1 or $2, that would be awesome. We're taking donations. I know that sounds weird right now. We're not one to ask for handouts. But as we've said before on the show, Brian, those koozies are not free. Okay, so there's that. Let me see.
Got in on that like Giving Tuesday or whatever yesterday was.
Oh shit, man! I think you're supposed to give to like Habitat for Humanity, not to college professors that do a podcast. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Like a rule or more like a custom?
Which part? Who you're supposed to give to? To whom?
This is totally unrelated. Did you see that like couple that last year faked like a homeless guy gave them $20 when they ran out of gas,
Yes.
and they raised like $500,000, and then you
They
found
took
out
it.
that they were just like gambling addicts who concocted this scheme?
Yep.
That's why no one's going to give us $1.
I know, because we've proven ourselves over the last 2.5 years to be nothing but scam artists. So I don't have the savvy to be a scam artist. I can't even lie to like my kids, and they're extremely gullible. But
All right, here's another side story. I used to always joke that it would be really funny during like a sporting event to just go stand with an orange vest next to a parking lot and take $20 from people until it was full and then bounce.
that's amazing.
Right?
Actually,
and then a hobo did it to me. A well-dressed hobo in Denver did that to me.
is it okay to say hobo?
I don't know.
Is that politically correct? I like. Did he have one of those sacks, like a stick and a sack?
That's actually called a bindle staff.
A bindle staff. I think of the Janis Joplin or Chris Christopherson song.
I'm gonna play
pulled my heart
on Words with Friends.
Excuse me.
So I'm gonna play bindle staff on Words with Friends.
Bindle staff. Okay, so we're checking off our boxes of must ground we have to cover. The surprise that I have for you, my friend, is your brother and I are collaborating with Tivoli Brewing Company to basically start a brewing business podcast. Tivoli is going to support everything. It's going to be co-sponsored by the MSU Denver Department of Communications.
Wow.
And yeah. So that's going to start. It's going to roll out first of the year. So Jay and I have been trying to secure some guests in order to kind of have some intelligent conversations about the business of brewing and craft brewing in particular. So I reached out to Eno Saris yesterday, the baseball commentator. He's a sabermetrician, much like you and I are. Very, very popular fella on the Twitter. Very well known in the kind of advanced analytic circle. And Eno is an avid beer drinker, and he will be joining the show. Not us. Not this show. But we're going to air that interview as part of Sports Nerds in the next, hopefully, 5 to 6 weeks. So looking forward to having Eno on there. And I'm just going to tell you now, because I'm really bad at keeping secrets, it was suggested I reach out to Kevin Youkilis to do the same. Yeah, because the Uke has his own brewery in California.
I want to be a guest on that one.
I know you do. So if that happens.
If you have the Greek god of walks on a podcast and I'm not invited.
And now I want to ask you, what have you done for me? Exactly. Okay. All right. See,
I have like every personal electronic I own up right now to record this damn thing. So I did that.
Thank you.
In my makeshift studio.
Did your administrative assistant help you out?
We don't have one anymore.
I know. You told me. Okay, moving on before we lose Telly. Somebody coming in here. What is that sound? See, if you're watching the video, you understand that I basically look like I'm in a closet.
This episode of
on this
Studios.
The good news is I don't have to change the color scheme of our logo because Michigan didn't win last weekend. Hey, there we go. Well, we texted on and off. That was a fun game, wasn't it? What are your thoughts? You okay? You recovered?
Yeah, I don't have anything good to say. I mean, defense looked terrible, which is weird because they usually look good. Some crazy mistakes. The block punt for a touchdown and then the interception inside your own 10 for a touchdown really kind of shifted the momentum. It seemed like nearing halftime it was going to be a game, and then all of a sudden it wasn't a game.
I wonder.
Here's my feeling. Once again, we got the college the rankings, the pre-conference championship rankings, which are these from the college playoff people? These most recent ones, they are, right?
The ones that came out last night?
Yeah.
Yes.
They used to come out with their rankings like at week 5, so they've stopped now. Now the college playoff rankings come out before the conference championships and then the final rankings, so they only do 2 versions now. Is that correct?
That's correct.
They came out yesterday. They came out Monday, right? It seems to me that this field would be such a great 8-team playoff. And I'm not arguing this just as a Michigan fan that would like to see Michigan get in, but the other team that seems to be on the outside looking in classic NCAA thumbing their noses at non-mainstream conferences is UCF, right? Undefeated UCF comes into this ranked 8. Is that right?
I think they're up to 7,
8. But it's basically impossible for them to make it in the playoff. So if Alabama beats Georgia in the conference championship game, if Texas beats Oklahoma, and if Northwestern beats Ohio State, undefeated, and UCF beats whoever they're playing, Memphis, they still would be on the outside looking in. They'd still be 5.
The thing about UCF, though, they lost their quarterback last weekend. Like their stud quarterback. So
that opens a Pandora's box about how you should evaluate these rankings. But I think conventional wisdom says you have to do it based on their resume, not based on personnel. You're right. They're not going to have the same product on the field. But that's still unfair, right?
Yeah, there's a couple thoughts.
If they're 12-0 after beating a ranked Memphis team, that team deserves to be in a playoff. Maybe doesn't deserve to be in a 14 playoff, but maybe we should have an 18 playoff.
I want to comment on this. I agree. I think that there needs to be expansion, but we're going to jump into a story about the NCAA here in just a minute. And so I want that as a fan. I want that 8-team playoff, but I really, really feel bad for the players, right? Quite honestly. I mean, that means, well, it's going to be done for money, right? It's going to be done for money. It's going to be done in order for sponsors to make money, these bowl sponsors to make money. Fans are going to love it. Obviously, we're going to pour money into it, but what is going to be the cost to these student athletes? I wonder. That's the only issue, right? Like, you're going to have to cut down on your regular season play. Then you're going to have to either eliminate non-conference games or shave your conference schedule a little bit. I don't know. Something's going to have to happen. You can't really expect.
Or just get rid of conference championships.
Yeah, or get rid of conference championship. But I don't know how that would work either, right? Like, they kind of have the Big 12 has kind of been required to create a conference championship game out of nowhere, despite they only have 8, 10 teams. What do they have? Anyhow, yeah, they got to do something. Sorry, I'm a little self-conscious about this classroom hearing me. I don't think.
Are they looking at you?
No, I guess they can't. I'm just loud. You know me. I'm loud.
Why do you think they can't play another game?
I mean, because they're not getting paid for it.
People make this. So this is the problem: is that people make this argument both ways, right? On the one hand, they want to say, "Hey, they're student athletes, and the expectations and time pressures and all that are totally unreasonable because they can't go to class and focus on their studies and all that stuff." And then on the other side, they make the same argument that they should be paid because they spend all this time on their athletics and they couldn't possibly go get a job. Both of those things can't be true at once, right? Either you expect them to be students or you expect them to be athletes compensated in whatever way they are. I'm not arguing that they shouldn't be compensated, but they are in a way compensated now. Are they student athletes or not?
I know. Are you asking me, or is that a rhetorical question?
Well, I'm saying does adding one more game is it the straw that breaks the camel's back for you? Is that the where you draw the line in the commodification of college athletes?
It just makes me feel a little bit more uneasy as a fan. How about that? I mean, I struggle enough, as you know, with kind of squaring the circle of fandom.
Bracketing the conversation about whether or not college athletes are treated fairly. Logistically, adding another game is not a problem because college football is going to end this weekend, basically, and we're not going to have a national championship game until January, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, there's functionally a month off. You could add 3 games if you wanted to. And by the way, they're missing school all the time. If the argument is missing school, they're missing school all the time to travel for regular season games that are during the semester. Are playing games in December once school's over during Christmas break. They're not even supposed to be in school at that point. I don't know.
No, I mean, it's funny that we're talking about football because I don't know if all the conferences have done this, but the Big Ten has changed basketball schedules. And so now you actually play conference games, a few of them at the beginning of December, end of November in the Big Ten. And so, like, what does that do to finals week for those kinds of student athletes? I don't know, man. It's fucked up, to be quite honest. It's been obviously in our first topic that we're going to cover. I was thinking a lot about this week. It's a story that came out in October. It spent a little bit of time in rotation. Basically, Kansas players, Adidas. There was some pay for play going on basketball with the basketball team. The big component of this is that Bill Self, some tweets that he had sent to Adidas representatives, basically allude to the fact that he knew that these transactions were happening. I wanted to talk to you about it, Brian, because there was a few questions I wanted to ask, particularly like why has this not garnered more attention, but also, you can keep going on your rant here, your hatred of the NCAA, because you and I are definitely in the same boat. Like, what are we coming to? What is happening, and why aren't we more concerned with how these student athletes are treated? Because as much as we can say, oh, they're getting a free education, or oh, they're not even there to go to school and all that BS. I think we can make the argument that if you look at all of the Division I college football and college basketball players, right, which make up obviously the bulk of the money-making entities that are related to NCAA sports, the vast majority of those athletes are not going to play professionally, right? They are there to get an education. They are focused on their grades, and so to me, that argument doesn't work for me. I'd like to hear from you. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
No, I mean, you're right. There's a definite crossing of streams that's hard to as you said before, square the circle, right?
Like a sword fight.
Exactly. I don't know how to have a conversation about if we should have a 8-team college playoff without discussing, like you rightly brought up, whether or not college athletes are being kind of exploited or taking advantage of. It's hard to have conversations about when conference play should start in the Big Ten relative finals week if we really think that student athletes are supposed to be student athletes. It's a paradox and a contradiction that it's a known secret, right? It's a joke. Like the NCAA pretends like they care about the student athlete, right? And I'll be honest, I sort of bought the line for a little bit. Like when you think about it, Division II and Division III and all this other stuff, the majority of athletes are not D1 football and basketball players from premier programs. Most of them aren't going to go pro, like you mentioned. But that doesn't mean that extreme minority that does go pro are the ones who are generating the bulk of the revenue, right? It comes from football, it comes from basketball, it comes from March Madness and all of that stuff. And I guess it's just, one of these things that people are willing to, we had Dr. Dan Lair on the podcast, and he said ideology that Slavoj Žižek definition of ideology is like when you know something's fucked up, but you do it anyways, right? You continue to do the exact same thing. I think that's how everybody sort of continues to participate in college athletics, right? From a viewer, from a consumer perspective, that we're willing to say, yeah, it's unfair. Yeah, there's something weird going on, but we're willing to participate anyways. And you're right. This is a story that I honestly hadn't even heard this Bill Self thing until you emailed me this link. And it's bananas, right? We're talking about people from Adidas who faced criminal charges for the way they were, I guess, spending money under the table to get high school athletes to commit to college basketball programs. And these text messages seem to point out that the Kansas basketball was fully aware that this was happening and was a willing participant in it, right? I mean, and more than that, the text messages also seem to paint a picture of this is absolutely how it works. That it was not an aberration, it was not the exception to the rule. That it's just the way it went. That if you want to get premier players at your programs, that it's all about having Adidas build you a $200 million stadium and funnel money under the table to premier players to get them to commit, right? The text messages show not only players who they managed to get to go to Kansas by giving them money under the table, but also joking about players that they couldn't get to commit to Kansas because they wouldn't accept the money or wouldn't take enough money. It's ambiguous there.
What do you think the responsibility or the blame should be regarding coaches and administrators in these stories? Because, and the reason why I ask is there was an article a really short piece that Howard Bryant wrote for the most recent issue of ESPN the magazine. And there was some quote in there from Jim Boeheim saying that, we're not benefiting from this. There's not any money that extra money that's coming to the coaches. And Bryant talks about the hypocrisy of Boeheim saying that, a guy who makes over $2 million a year, right, with players who make none. But I guess
Well,
I'm
and
not
makes
quite.
more when his team does well, right?
Yeah,
Gets
exactly.
a longer contract or gets your contract extended. Yeah.
I'm just, academically, I'm extremely intrigued by how these stories get framed in ways that basically shift the vast majority of the blame away from administrators for sure, and in a lot of cases, coaches. I mean,
Or the students who take the money.
right. It's sorry, you're saying towards students who take the money?
I said sometimes the blame gets shifted towards the
Oh, it
students who
does,
take
right?
the
I mean, I
money.
think the
Think,
salaciousness
think,
of it
think
is
about Reggie
obvious.
Bush at USC, right?
Yeah,
When
yeah.
he found out that a booster club gave him and his family a bunch of money, the blame was on them,
No, I
right?
mean, oh, it
He's the one
totally.
who
Even
lost
now
his
you think about
Heisman.
that story. No, even now when we talk about that story and we think about it in the coverage that it gets, like Pete Carroll is not. He's not, and has never been under the microscope for this.
Well, he suffered none of the penalties, right? USC, for the future players, the players and coaches that came afterwards suffered the penalties for that, right? Reggie
Mhm.
Bush did, got his Heisman taken away. Pete Carroll skipped off to Seattle and won a Super Bowl.
I don't think. I mean, I don't know if I'm. Oh, fuck it, right? We can say this. We can do this even if I get fired from Metro. No,
Don't say that.
no, it's just I've been in Tivoli, doing work, getting a beer while the coaches are in there, talking without players, and I just overheard as a fly on the wall interviews between the head coach and the assistant coach, would be assistant coach, and obviously the data set that I have for these relationships for this communication is minor, but I don't think that the focus for a lot of these folks is on the player. And I'm not saying that's always the case, and I'm not saying that's the case at Metro whatsoever, but if I'm a Division I coach in particular, and I know that I'm in a place like, if I'm Krzyzewski or Boeheim or I'm Bill Self, that half my roster is going to leave after a year or two, I would make the argument that their investment in players is not necessarily at the personal level. They are not concerned with building up the integrity or the professional appropriateness of these student athletes. They're there to win, and I kind of get that, right? That's why they're paid, but my issue is that's a fucked up system in which the kids are going to get taken advantage of. That's a major, major flaw. That's a major, major problem.
You're not wrong. Yeah. I mean, I absolutely agree. This is, I mean, I've made this point on this podcast ad nauseum at this point hundreds of times. It feels like we need to stop straddling the line, right? Like, treat college athletics as an ancillary thing, an appendage to college programs. Like, we could be like, colleges are colleges, and they also have pro sports teams attached to them that are, at an intermediary level between amateur and professional or something like that. Or you need to jettison college sports altogether. Maybe those aren't really the two options. Maybe it's jettison college sports altogether or make them not professional, but at least recognize that they are semi-professional sports entities, not these small scale facsimiles of professional organizations.
At a very, very high level, though, Brian, like at I wouldn't say ideological level, but almost a philosophical level, theoretical level, we as a country, but also as a capitalistic society, don't have the capacity to think about the NCAA and those relationships in ways that could benefit players, in my opinion, right? Like, if you were to have some sort of profit sharing, if you were to actually sit down and spend years, hire some economists, spend years to create a system in which that were to happen, I think people's heads would explode. I really, really do. I'm anxious to have John Solo on here, actually, the University of Iowa economist, because he does a lot of research on salaries in Major League Baseball, and perhaps this is something we should ask him, because I don't think, like, in terms of, like, you and I being Foucauldians, right? The language that we use to make sense of our realities, and the practices that we use that are informed by that language, can kind of make us narrow-minded. It can limit the potential to think outside of the system, to the discursive system in this case, right? The system of language and action. And so I just don't think we're capable of doing. I think it might work in other places around the world. I really, really do. I mean, think about how I understand that there are issues with soccer in other parts of the world, but if you think about how soccer players are treated and the power that they have in places in Europe, there's something to be learned, but I don't think we have the capacity here. And it's so hard for us to think outside of that. I don't even want to say it's capitalism, right? It's a neoliberal kind of economic system. I think it's almost impossible for decision makers to think outside of that. Well, you and I can talk about this as academics. We can sound smart, but I think it's almost impossible. If I'm a college administrator, or if I'm, the head of the NCAA, to think and to invest time in changing the system. But I mean, we're going to continue having this fucking conversation for years, Brian. That's what upsets me.
Well, no, but that's the problem deep down, is that, like, you can think about players being taken advantage of, but I think that there's probably also individual schools that are taken advantage of as well. Right?
Oh, for sure.
If you go to a school in the Big Ten and say, go someplace else and try and get as much money as you do from being a member school of the Big Ten, it'd be hard pressed to do that, right? Like, you're getting money from the Big Ten, but that doesn't mean that you're getting your fair share of what you put into it, right? The Big Ten could be making more money than you. The NCAA could be making more money, right? There's money walking out the door, but because it's the best opportunity around, that's really the only option that you have. What else are you going to do, right? And it's also easy to, like, envision sports as this thing that's sort of stuck on the outside of schools, but that's not really how it works, right? It's really intricately woven into the fabric of universities. And we've talked about this on the podcast before, that people have an image of what a college looks like when they apply to it. Lots of people want to go to big state school programs that have a full slate of sports, even if you're not an athlete, because it means that you can be part of that fan culture, or you can go and watch those games, or you can be an alum who associates with those teams and that sort of stuff. So from the perspective of recruiting and fundraising from an alum,
a lot of that is tied up with sports. So it's not an option to not do those things for a lot of universities. It's not actually saying, why don't we just run sports?
No, you're good. I can. Oh yeah, it's fine. I can hear you. Your audio though is just great. So Brian's audio, or his video stopped there for a second. But while you're getting reconnected, I was thinking about the fact that the actual student athletes are not even given a seat at the table for this, and I think that's really a major issue. There are no representatives at most universities for student athletes to even have conversations about how they are governed or the power that they have in relation to the money that's made on their backs. And I think that, like, that's maybe that is one way to improve the situation, is to have them join the conversation, have them able to share their perspective and to share, what they think is wrong or right with the entire system. But as mentioned, right, that's certainly not possible. Do you?
The NCAA, I think that's a fight that you're sort of set up to lose.
I think that I see. Yep, you're good. You're back. Can you say that one more time?
Yeah, no. I just, like, is it fair? I mean, I agree that students should have the opportunity to represent their interests, but I'm just not sure that is both necessary and sufficient to create any level of meaningful change. I don't think that the majority of, particularly individual students, are an individual student, or that individual students are able to advocate for their position or their cause or their rights or whatever to a university or to a conference or to the NCAA, if only by virtue that having less systemic power.
No, wait. Okay. You work with very intelligent students.
And again, my point is not that they're not intelligent. My point is different than that.
But you don't think
they're at a systemic power disadvantage.
Okay, sure, right. But I mean, dude, there are students here on this campus who have that are willing to kind of go to battle with Board of Regents members, Board of Trustee members, right? They're student leaders in a lot of ways, right? They're future politicians or future community leaders. I have a hard time thinking that there are not amongst the huge pool of Division I athletes that are at Power 5 universities, but really any Division I university, men and women alike, who would be able to represent the student athlete body in ways that would compel other administrators or leadership to kind of have to hear them. I think that's like, dude, that's it's not even, how can we know if they wouldn't be successful because they're not even given the opportunity?
No, I agree. I agree with you. I'm not saying don't do it because they wouldn't be successful. I'm saying that is not. I wouldn't view that as the sole way to combat what we see as a deeply ingrained problem with college athletics.
Okay.
Right. Here's a group of students that get to go. In fact, I think there's a chance that what that looks like is a sort of token gesture on the part of the folks that have their levers on the hands of power. Right? To be like, well, we talked to 10 athletes and we convinced them that we were right. Or we talked to 10 athletes and we heard what they had to say and they made a really good case, but we're going to do whatever the fuck we were going to do anyways. I mean, that's what I think it would look like. A bunch of lawyers from the NCAA on one side of a conference room table with a bunch of D2 soccer players from Chadron State or something.
No, I don't know.
I was just trying to paint a word picture. No offense to Chadron.
It would just be nice to have that opportunity, right, to see how that would work. But we got to move on to the next one.
If you want to see how it works, do it, but make it televised.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Let's watch this meeting. Let's watch the NCAA explain to students why they're not, exploited labor.
I like that. That's cool. Let's do it. Let's find somebody that would make that happen. That's fucking sweet. Next story, Reuben Foster. Wow, this is a crazy-ass story. Reuben Foster, defensive back, right? Defensive back for he had been with the 49ers. Altercation.
Football team.
Yeah, altercation this weekend. Charged or allegations of domestic violence with a on-again, off-again girlfriend. He got cut. The 49ers cut him. And then 2 days ago, yesterday, we're recording this on Wednesday, the Washington football team picked him up, gave a long-winded statement legitimating or justifying why they did it. But we are now here with Reuben Foster. This is his second second allegation in the last 6 months. The story on Deadspin, kind of insinuated that it's the same ex-girlfriend, who he did. He was accused of beating up in May. She kind of dropped charges. But now we're back to this again, right? It appears that he hit her through. The guy likes to throw cell phones. He also threw a dog in May, so there's that. But is winning everything?
Yeah, I guess.
Does it come down to that?
Just another. Didn't I make this joke on the last podcast that the Washington football team, for whatever reason, is so willing to embrace controversy as their PR strategy, right? Just to we'll just be a lightning rod for controversy, and we're cool with that. Because I don't think any other team would do it.
But yet they wouldn't sign Kaepernick.
Well, yeah, but that's true. That's that. Yeah.
Which shed some light on our conversation last week about why they decided not to sign Kaepernick. Right? I think I had attempted to give them the benefit of the doubt on the situation, but it would appear that now I shouldn't have. I don't know. I can't understand this. Right? I can't understand why this would even. I can't understand outside of money and winning how this is an ethical choice to make. I don't get it, and I also don't get why we're okay with it.
Yeah,
no. That's what the fuck, man. If I'm I don't know, dude. I don't know.
Hey, you definitely shouldn't kneel during the national anthem, though, because that's offensive.
Yeah, I make in my brain, I've done the same kind of as a fan, in the fan brain, right? I let the Cubs sign. The Cubs signed Aroldis Chapman, and I continued to root for him. So I don't know. It just goes to show, I guess, the power of our emotional connections to our teams, and the power of money too, and winning.
Yeah. No. This guy's going to get suspended, right?
I think so. Yeah.
I'm just trying to put my brain in the same position as the Washington football team. Is there logic we'll sign him on the off chance he doesn't get suspended, and if he does, we waive him and it doesn't cost us anything. If that's their logic, it highlights the main kind of criteria that NFL teams are using when they sign players, which should come as no surprise, that it's financial risk and reward against added value to their teams. The problem, as you just pointed out, is that there's no room inside of that logic for PR stuff or for ethical considerations or for, kind of the values that you want to represent as an organization, which is weird because the NFL talks big about that sort of thing, about their image, because individual teams talk big about those same things. But clearly, the only logic that I can employ that makes this decision make any sense is one that's strictly based on sort of economic value of signing a player and the value that they add to your productivity, to your product. And I think that's a problem. Let me connect this back to a conversation we just had, which is this not the exact same logic that is used?
Hold on. Wait, I don't mean to cut you off. Apparently, Ben Gilbert just told me that soon after the Redskins signed him, he was placed on the exempt list. So, which means what? That means that's
the same thing happened to Ray Rice, right?
Yeah, but that means
which means you're still getting paid. You're not suspended. Is that right?
You're still getting paid. He's been placed on front faces. Oh, okay, so he's, I guess. Continue.
The NFL placed him on the commissioner exempt list.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the you can't play. The NFL has placed him on the you can't play list.
Wow. All right. Thanks, Ben, for chiming in. Oh God, dude. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Would you want to finish that thought?
Yeah. The commissioner exempt list means you can't practice or attend games. But with the club's permission, he may represent at the club's facility on a reasonable basis for meetings, individual workouts, therapy, and rehabilitation. But I think you're getting paid at the same time while this stuff is going on.
That's what Gilbert says. Wow.
Yeah, Foster will get paid his normal salary by Washington while he's on the exempt list.
It's like having.
Well, I wonder if as a result of this, Washington then says, "Oh, our gamble didn't pay off," or if they say, "This is exactly what we thought was going to happen," and if it gets resolved in his favor, then we've stolen a good player from another team. But it goes back to the same thing we were saying before. It's the logic is not one of image or of values or of ethics. It's one strictly of economic value that it's validated by that validates the strategic or tactical move that you made, right? Mm-hmm. The point that I was trying to make is this not the same logic that undergirds colleges that choose to get in bed with Division I sports or with big Division I conferences or the NCAA, right? Or chooses to make college athletics integral to the fabric of their campus culture, right? Mm-hmm. Are they doing that because they say, like, we can make all of these arguments that are about the value of athletics qua athletics, right? It's good because it's breeds leadership skills and it teaches teamwork skills and it's good physical exercise, right? All the things, like, think of PE class as a kid, all the reasons why you should do physical team oriented activities, right? There's all those reasons why you can do sports, and colleges can say that's why it's important for us to have athletics. Or they can even make culture arguments, right? It's good for campus culture, etc. But the other line of arguments that have nothing to do with sports qua sports is it's good because we make a bunch of money. It's good because we can recruit well. It's good because we can get a lot of money from our alumni and donors and that sort of stuff, right? Like the second one, right, that list on the left-hand side or stage right, if you're looking at me, is that same logic whereby Washington says, yeah, we'll take a flyer on this team just in case he doesn't get, the person who accused him of domestic violence backs off again and doesn't get a suspension, in which case it was a great move for us. But it does not take into consideration all the reasons you should not sign that dude that are ethical considerations or value-based considerations. We shouldn't do this because it's the wrong fucking thing to do.
Mm-hmm. No, I know. Like, mic drop there. That was pretty strong stuff. What am I trying to say? I know. We've moved so far away from I think sports as a tool for informing and molding good citizens. That's no longer what it is, right? And I think you and I have talked about it at the youth sports level. There's still good things happening, don't get me wrong whatsoever, but I think once your kids reach a certain age, the same kind of reasoning, or whether that's acknowledged or not, right? The same intent. How about that? For a 12-year-old travel team is the same, or sorry, the intent for a 12-year-old travel team that charges you $1,500 a summer so your kid can play baseball is very much the same intent that we're criticizing here with the Washington football team, but also previously with the NCAA and with the University of Kansas. So I got one last story that I wanted to get your perspective on before you run off to your meeting. Last night, University of Iowa, 6-0, by the way, right? Your number 14 Hawkeyes beat Pitt. But quite the story that has spun after this is that Gary Dolphin, longtime announcer for the Iowa Hawkeyes, football and basketball, had some comments to say off mic, but the mic was not off, in which he basically criticized head coach Fran McCaffrey's inability to recruit good players. And then the big problem, at least for me, is his criticism of the player himself, a junior Daly, I can't remember his first name. That's just kind of a really shitty player. So did you have a chance to kind of listen to this audio?
I didn't listen to the audio, but I read what he said.
Okay. What do you think Iowa should fire him?
No.
You don't?
No,
okay.
No. I actually this made me think. Listen, I'm not like an Iowa basketball fan, so we probably read this a lot differently. Hey, Michigan is also 6-0, dude. So just hold on to your horses there.
Hey,
they play in Iowa this year. Otherwise, I'd go and root against your team. No, my reaction to this is that I think it's a problem. I think this is like a regionalized sports network problem too. That we used to watch a lot of sports on a national stage where you get something of an unbiased announcing team, right? And instead what you get now is that, all baseball teams play on their regional sports network, and, football is still, thank goodness, still nationally televised for the most part. It's not like the, Denver Broncos announcers or whatever. But I think it's a problem. Right. So here's. I'll try and be quick about this, but here's an example. I only want to watch the Red Sox if I can listen to Jerry Remy, right, when he's there. I don't want to listen to other announcers precisely because I don't want to hear criticism. I like the kind of hometown point of view. But is that a good thing?
I know. It's like a beat writer, right, for a sports team.
It is. Yeah, it's the exact same thing. Like, don't you wish that this guy had said these things in maybe with more of a public, an eye towards a public view, for public consumption. Mm-hmm. If he had said, like, what you get from home, dude, the Bill Hanslick and who's the other guy who announces for the Denver Nuggets? Hanslick not there anymore.
I have no idea. I don't listen.
Scott Hastings, rather. I've been out of Denver for a while, but Scott Hastings, like watching the Denver Nuggets basketball people on TV on altitude, dude, they're the craziest homers ever, and you just can't handle it when you hear people who don't have a homer bend. Announcing sports. I think it might be refreshing to hear this guy say, boy, our point guard play really wasn't that good in the first half. Like, you disagree with anything he said? Or just, are you mad that he said it because he's supposed to be only saying things through the lens of in support of my team?
I'm not upset with Gary Dolphin at all. I'm wondering what it does, knowing the intimacy between the radio announcing crew and the team, especially with basketball, right, where you don't have a huge roster. What does that do for, I guess, the affective energy of the room? Like, does it affect anything? Do players not care? To me, that's the issue, right? I agree with you 100%. I think, you're almost better off listening to ESPN announcers for a basketball game because you're going to get more insight. You're going to get a more honest commentary. But in this particular case, right, there is a relationship, and what does harming that relationship do long term for a team? And I think that's what Gary Barta, the AD at Iowa, has got to decide today in terms of how he's going to treat and handle this situation. The interesting thing is, and I was reading this morning, I wasn't in Hawk Centric, it wasn't Chad Ledowski, sorry, can't pronounce his name correctly. I can't remember who it was, but does this affect Barta? Does this affect Gary Dolphin announcing Iowa's bowl game next month? And so I don't know, man. It's a little cray-cray.
It shouldn't, right? If you think that he said something unfair or incorrect, then yeah, discipline the person or fire them or whatever. If you think everything he said is true, then I guarantee you all of these point guards who weren't playing well heard the same times 10 from their coaches at the next practice, right? Why sugarcoat everything? If it's and by the way, this also circles back to that idea of selling a vision or a version of a sports culture so that you get recruits and so that you get alumni donations. Is that all you want to hear? Is just like the most positive rose-colored glasses version of everything about your sports teams, or do you want to have it to be a little bit more unfiltered? I don't know.
Absolutely.
And listen, man, this is the stuff where, and I'm going to take this, maybe a little to an extreme, but this is the stuff where you get, the type of fan culture where anytime their team loses, it was an inside job, or the refs were out to get them, or they got screwed by a call, and they're unwilling to be like, no, we lost that game, right? Does that make sense? That logic is reinforced by a sports culture of fans and announcers who think that their team is the best. Well, sometimes it's better to be realistic about this sort of stuff. If you're a deep cut sports fan, and I imagine if you're listening to this podcast, you probably read about your teams on, different like sports message boards and stuff like that, where you'll find that the truest, most diehard fans are almost always their team's biggest critics, and they're super pessimistic, right? Go read diehard Red Sox fans. They're always like, man, this team sucks. We're terrible. Every move we make is the wrong move. We're just sort of destined to be terrible, and to any success we have is going to be swamped back by bad decisions or whatever. This is a different version. This is the more PR version of a team, and I'm not sure that it breeds like a good understanding of sports. I don't think it's genuine. I don't think it's honest. I don't know. I'm okay with this. Also, deep down, dude, it was a hot mic moment. They didn't mean to say it on TV, and they apologized. So.
I like your take. I appreciate that. That's actually really, really strong. So good work. I think it's a good place to leave it for today. Congrats to Amani Hooker, who is the 4th Iowa defensive back in the last 7 years to win D-back of the year in the Big Ten. So we are now, I know you don't give a shit about that, but Iowa, the good thing about that is they're actually producing defensive backs that are Pro Bowlers or all pro. So that's good for recruiting. For us, I'm sorry Michigan's out of it. It looks like I hate to root for Ohio State, but I'm a Big Ten homer, and I just feel bad. I told you this yesterday. I feel really bad for Northwestern this weekend. Really, really bad. Ohio State's going to hang 70 on them. They're going to have to. But any closing comments?
Yeah, 18 playoff.
I know, 18 playoff. All right, buddy. Good luck at the meeting, and you have a wonderful afternoon. See ya.